as long as a win comes with it for Fabiano, right? And so we'll put our attention onto this board as the first moves come out.
Previously, Fabi had been meeting knight f3s and d4s with the king's Indian defense. With the move knight f3, Fabi said, no more king's Indian defense, no knight f6, knight f6, g6 ideas. But with the move c7, c5, what is very interesting is he was inviting an open Sicilian. Magnus, would you like to play an open Sicilian? Nope, said Magnus, I will play in English with c4, and now we see g7, g6 on the board. d2, d4 takes, knight c6. And with the move e2, e4, we are in the Maroczy bind.
Yes, this Maroczy bind territory. Generally speaking, white has a bit of a spatial edge, but can't necessarily do much with it. You have to be really cagey and careful and try to improve your position, because those two pawns sitting on c4 and e4, they bind black from being able to play the move d5 in any way, and that is the challenge that black will face, as white will have a spatial advantage, but black doesn't have any weaknesses to really target in the short term anyway.
I had asked Ulf Andersson, Grandmaster from Sweden, what's wrong with this position for black? And Ulf had this amazing insight into chess, a very, very different insight than my own. And he said, the d5 square is too weak. That's it. I mean, he didn't say what you were just saying, the pawn weaknesses and, you know, who's king. And no. He just said that white's control over d5, the d5 square was too weak. Bishop e3. Okay. Magnus is ready to pull back his queen and force the trade of bishop to h6. Fabi says, yeah, this has all been played before. I know this variation inside and out. Let's go. And by the way, didn't he just have some experience on the white side of it against Hikaru?
Suffered a little bit, in fact. Despite having that bind, he was the one who suffered. Black does want to see pieces come off the board, because if you have pieces off the board, then the bind is not as constraining, because there are no pieces to constrain or to bind, if you will. Right. So that is something that he would like to see. White, on the other hand, will take this slowly, and look at Fabi played the move.
A5, A4.
Well, the idea behind this is that, okay, first of all, there is the, so to speak, majority. It's not quite the majority yet. There's a pawn on d6. But he's giving himself the a5 square for his queen. So the question is, in this position, is where's a good square for your queen? You put the pawn back on a7. It's not intuitively obvious. Should the queen go to d7? Should it hang out in the center? But with the move a4, he's looking at queen a5. Now, from white's point of view, white wondering, should I be playing for b2, b3? Should I be playing rook b1 and playing for a queenside attack? Or, conversely, should I be playing f4 and f5 and potentially playing for a kingside attack with bishop h6? Well, Magnus answered the question by playing the move rook d1, and instantly we saw bishop e6. A little bit of a surprise for me. I was almost certain that Fabi's intention had been to follow up with queen a5. Bishop to d4, a different approach completely than the approach of trading the bishop.
We should note, as we do our arithmetic,
right,
that if Magnus wins now, then Gukesh and Nakamura are mathematically knocked out of the competition.
As far as first place goes.
As far as first place, right? They'll be fighting for maybe second. By the way, second is $90,000.
Scraps.
so it's a $20,000 off a third and $30,000 off a fourth. So it does matter. But if Magnus wins right now, he will only be catchable by Fabi if Fabi goes on a magnificent roll.
Yeah. And not to forget that there is $3,000 at stake in every single one of these games. Right. Even if you weren't able to get first, if you win out the rest of the day with 4 games remaining, that's an extra 12 grand you're making over the course of a singular day.
Not bad.
Not bad.
It isn't bad, but let's just know this is not only a fight for first, it is like the elimination of the rest of the contenders in a single game and a single win by Magnus would pull that off, as he would rise to 20.5 points, and even Hikaru's best 4 wins wouldn't do anything.
Is it fair to say that with a win right now by Fabi, he secured second? First or second?
Now you're going to make me do even more math.
Yeah. With a win, there's only two players that can get first and second.
I don't think so. No, because he'd be sitting on 17
at 8
and a half.
points, right?
Yeah.
And he can only get a maximum of 12 points. However, his final matchup comes... his final matchup is against Carlson. So actually, yeah, if he were to get a win here, then Hikaru can't catch him. Because he would be at 20. Or no, he needs 2 wins. I'm sorry, he needs 2 wins to get to 20.5.
Hikaru's max score right now is 20. So
that's what I'm saying. So
Fabi
needs 2 wins to get to 20.5 and be uncatchable.
Fabi's max, it's only certain that if Magnus wins now, then only Fabi can catch him. And good luck, it would have extended his lead to 2 wins. So here comes this very important moment in the game.
Knight to d5. Normally speaking, you try to avoid this pawn structure because the backward pawn on e7 is too vulnerable. If the pawn was on e5 and there's no en passant, then this position would be perfectly acceptable, more than acceptable for black. So usually in these positions where you're being tagged with the threat of knight takes e7, you don't trade and you defend the pawn with rook e8.
He has traded, however.
Whoa, okay. Well, commentator's curse. I just gave this wonderful explanation. And
he didn't listen.
He didn't listen. So now, bishop takes, and now here's the problem. You're going to be passively defending this pawn, and essentially white wants to treble. I don't know how you get the rook on e1 with the bishop in the way, but white just simply wants to triple on the e-file and say, this is what it's all about. It's very, very difficult for black to get, I want to say, real counterplay.
Right. Black is in defensive posture only, and that's one of the problems with this position. It usually ends up being a slight edge for white, maybe not enough to win if your technique is not that good, especially if you're playing an opponent whose technique is
not that good.
It's just average, except when you're playing a guy with maybe the best technique of all time.
Well, then you got an issue.
You might be suffering because it's the kind of position Magnus relishes.
Absolutely.
I ain't got much, but guess what? I'm going to make you suffer for the next 40, 50, 60 moves if necessary. And now this offer up a queen trade.
Yeah, I'm probably declining this, actually. I like just the very simple queen c3 check, drop the bishop back to f1, and bring those rooks as quickly as you can. Just pile up. I mean, ABCs of chess. You just pile up on the e7 pawn. And it's such a comfortable game. You take no risks whatsoever. Knight f6, by the way, self-pinning, always an uncomfortable feeling, and the king is probably going to have to go back to g8. I might have just played the move king g8 here myself.
Because you're going to have to do it.
I'm going to have to do it anyway, and maybe keep the options of bringing my knight to a better square. I see the knight on f6 as being far too of a defensive piece for my taste. But,
well,
okay.
Magnus has centralized with his rook, and
Rook
it is
d4.
currently sitting on the d4 square.
Protecting pawn on c4, protecting pawn on d5, maybe sliding across the 4th rank. You could see that glide to h4, the queen coming to e3. But I'm seeing the rook coming to e1, and I'm seeing the bishop dropping back to f1. And again, I just want to say, for Fabi's fans, if you see Fabi playing rook e8 and e5, not
a fan?
Not a fan at all.
Let me say, we heard Gary say this very visual quote when he said, you could keep playing and suck his blood.
Yeah.
And we were like,
against Vichy.
Yeah, what is
that? I
that?
could suck his blood for a lot longer if I had played with the queens.
Vampires like Magnus
will suck your blood.
Not only that, they'll bleed your clock as well. So, I mean, we're getting visual and maybe a little bit gory, but the kind of situation where you as black sit here and you go, all right, what am I supposed to do exactly? Because I know my opponent is going to keep turning up the screws. I'm going to have to adopt some kind of defensive posture rook on c7, rook on e8 maybe, and try to hold the position together. That pawn on a4 could be a target later. Just, you pushed it. Well, maybe we'll use it as well. The bishop might come back to d1 at the right time and attack. So for Black has said, where is my play? And as you look to defend, your clock starts to bleed time.
Starts ticking.
That's where Magnus will find the ways to create more and more challenges, and you'll end up losing the game through just a mistake. And that's what he's facing right now.
Big surprise.
D1.
Very, very surprise move for me. I was looking at the move Rook E1 virtually exclusively. When I'm seeing this move, I mean, it strikes me as preposterous, but there is this really crazy idea of maybe just going after the H-pawn by doubling rooks on the H-file. It does look strange for me. Okay, rook c5, and essentially Black needs desperately to play the move b7, b5. So with this move, rook c5, Fabi is playing for queen a5 and b5.
There is the move g4, however, to dramatically alter.
That's what Magnus is setting up. The only reason you would play rook to d1 is so you could do a rover. To do a rover, you need to kick that guy away.
Let me tell you, g4 lands on the board right now. That'll be like a bomb going off in Fabi's brain, because he'll realize suddenly this is not about some position. And he's
Magnus.
He has played it. This is not about me going for the 50-60 move grind. This is me showing you that I'm the one with the space, and you're the one lacking any counterplay whatsoever. And suddenly a pawn storm and pieces will also join the fray. Black is starting to feel the heat right here, right now.
And we've seen the king
go back to G8. Like you said, it would have to eventually.
I know, but
H4 now on the board.
What? H4? Okay, I was sure he was following G4 up with G5, moving the knight aside so that he could do his rook lifts. Sorry, let me just put this on the board because it does require me to explain it in a different way. And if we could double the rooks on the D file, like something like rook to h4, maybe even queen to h3, that was what I thought Magnus was heading for.
I'm seeing h4, I'm seeing g5, then h5.
G5, h5.
Then take and open the file.
And open the file, or the e6 square for the bishop.
Right, if you take with the f-pawn, then bishop to g4, bishop e6. We can show that with some arrows. But what do you do about this plan? To push?
Okay, so we're just putting some bad move. Oops, sorry, G5.
He took his
he played rook
E8.
G5, knight d7, and H5.
And this is the question.
And so we're making a bad move for Fabi. So then if we take, we open the H file, and this is what it's all about. We just saw, by the way, Hikaru nearly checkmating Fabi down the H file. What a game that was.
And if you take with the f-pawn instead.
And if I take with the, and just what you were saying, if we take with the f-pawn instead, then the bishop, whoop, be careful. I
mean, that's what Magnus wants. That's what H4 signals. That's what I'm going for, is a G5, H5, break open that side, maybe even pre-move a rook to H4, just to say, well, guess what? And then the king could go to G2 even.
Here we go.
You don't have, and G5 on the board.
Here we go.
You don't have to bring the rook up. And instead, he's played a bit
rook
more cagey with rook to E4.
Okay, that was a surprise. We were really warming up to H5. Now, why would you play rook E4? Well, here it comes. It's all about that E7 pawn. I've been saying, let's gang up on the E7 pawn with a move like queen E3. If the knight jumps, now I'm clearing the diagonal, and I'll play F2, F4 in the very near future. By the way, I hate Black's position here.
Exactly. I was going to say, what do you do with Black to get your opponent to stop attacking, pay attention to something else?
Right.
There are no plans. You just simply have nothing to do but go into a tortoise shell and defend this position. Meantime, Magnus has multiple ways to consider. He could
increase
the pressure on the pawn on e7, and we see the queen drop back, which you called, let's make a bad move.
A passive move.
It was a passive move indeed. And here, there's just so little that black can do, and white has the e7 pawn. He's got the h file. It's his world, and Fabi's just living in it.
Right. That's really the case. H5 feels like it's play on one side, and Fabi has just defending. Queen e3 asks a very salient question. What are you doing about the pawn on e7? Knight e5?
Yeah.
You think you're attacking? No, you're not. I'll just play b3, and f4 will drive you right back. This is not a good position for Fabi. Magnus could be clinching the tournament. I hate to say it. He's got a 3-point lead. He'll have a 6-point lead if he wins this game.
Meantime, the other game that's really sort of a fight for third, Hikaru apparently is in trouble with the white pieces at that.
Wow. By the way, Gupkesh won a brilliant game. Was it day one where he got that bishop on d3? Well, guess what? He's got a knight on d3, from what I can tell. And Hikaru.
Well, how about that? Minute and 38 seconds
for Hikaru,
by the way, to 550 of Gupkesh, and a little bit worse in the position.
That is shocking.
Hikaru hasn't had a great day yet.
No.
He broke even on day one, was minus on day two.
That's a very good point.
And now he could be going minus. He's already minus today, and if he goes minus again, he will not have won a single day.
By the way, a very desperado-like move here by Fabi. He's just played the move b7, b5, doing his best to try to distract Magnus from his main goal, which is to take this pawn on e7.
Kind of lashing out, right? In a no good choices kind of situation. It's either continue the turtle defense or at least throw something a little wild your opponent's way.
Exactly. I'm a pawn grabber. I definitely do think about taking these pawns. After a move like takes, I don't know. I think you're supposed to play knight to, because you've got to defend the pawn. And then, again, I'm a pawn up. Okay, that's one. But Magnus might have greater ambitions than simply winning a pawn.
I'm going to say I love that pawn move.
You do.
Because
B5.
It's better to do something and get crushed than do nothing and get crushed.
If you're going to die on your sword.
Go down swinging.
Exactly. Go down swinging, make a move.
Right.
Maybe you might confuse your opponent, even though this is not the person who gets confused easily. But at least do something to distract your opponent from his grandiose schemes. Because as you look at the position, look at how much space white has. But with that space does come some issues. You weaken your king, right? You give me a little potential shots at the back inside of your position. So there may be that f4, you're doing all that, but there's some dark sides to that move. That's what Fabi's hoping for. And remember that runaway clock advantage we saw? Now suddenly, Magnus may even drop below Fabi as he tries to figure out the next move, which, by the way, as you said, he could just take a pawn. You would think, this is what I played for.
Yeah, building up.
It's not what he wants, though.
With great space comes great responsibility. And look at it, b4, en passant. I was going to play b3, but Magnus felt like b4 was more forcing. En passant was forced. AB on the board. And I'm thinking that in case we get a variation just like this, Magnus is saying, okay, this knight is going backwards after. Whoa!
And Rook takes
a totally different approach by Magnus. He said, you can mess up my pawn structure, and after captures, not the instant recapture with the pawn, b4, he captured with the rook. And that was a big surprise.
But this position now, though, as we see the eval bar go way down, Magnus's advantage has dropped precipitously. Because those weaknesses we talked about, you see those pawns advance on the king side, he kind of wished they were back, as it's not so easy to advance them without counterplay. Black can move the queen, attack the pawn on b4, and make you start paying attention. Black actually has something to do suddenly.
Exactly. And the weird part was Magnus had really pressured the pawn on e7, and he got distracted with this b4 for rook takes c4. He got distracted from his main agenda, which was pressuring e7 and playing h5, by the way, as well. And I don't know. I don't feel like he's actually played this ideally.
He's totally annoyed. He's totally annoyed. We're being told rook c7 is a shot here, and I see why. You go into an endgame, but you don't want your pawns on the other side. You play g5 and h4 for a reason, and suddenly the game has become inconsistent. Magnus's sense of control is gone from the position, and he did play this way, understanding that he needed to change the narrative, but the full sense of control, he's going to feel a little bit annoyed that this is the position he's playing when he had such a dominant position to start with.
And such a clear goal once he had played g5 and he was going to follow it out with h5. He was going to triple on the e file. That move b5 completely distracted him and threw him off course.
Back to Maurice's point about loving the move.
Yes.
It shook the game up.
Right. Technically, he should have lost the pawn, but you know as a competitor, the timing was right. And now bishop takes, and now it's Magnus's king that's the one to worry about, even though that pawn is sitting on b4, looks past. But now he has to deal with any queen g4 ideas by the black queen in some incursions on that side. Thankfully, he has a dominant queen on the d4 square. But these endings are notoriously difficult to win. You cannot push through. Okay, there is an h5 move he'll try to play, but that's going to get taken as soon as it arrives on the square. That's got to get snapped off.
You don't want to see
the pawn on h6. But after rook b5 and solidity, you cannot push your pawn forward. You need a secondary threat in terms of that potential h5.
Right.
But it's not going to happen very cleanly for Magnus. Right now, Fabi is safe.
Not 100%. I still see rook c4. I still see the potential for this pawn. Imagine I play rook c4, and imagine you play rook b5, and I drop back with the queen. Queen to c3. Queen f5. Okay. Putting a little pressure on the d5 pawn.
Yeah.
Okay.
At least he can't advance just yet. Both of them now under 2 minutes, and a rook is on c7.
And here's the trick. Do not play queen b1 check and queen takes b4. I think I've fallen for this cheapo like 100 times in my life, because the first 99 times I didn't think it was it was good. But queen e5 after rook c7, that should equalize the game fully.
Because you do start losing things, and he's
e5.
Now he's just throwing pawns down the board.
There we go. And there was a very quick en passant. And not this pawn. Again, I feel that this is the more dangerous pawn.
Yes, but
b5
your king can be the thing. He has played rook c6, attacking the pawn, and if you defend it with the move rook d8, there is a b5 potential sighting.
That's the pawn I think is the most dangerous in the position is the b pawn. Much more dangerous, I want to say, than the d pawn.
Now, queen e5. The rook can't leave the back rank.
No.
That's the key. The black rook cannot leave the back rank. Fabi wishes he had his h pawn sitting on h5 already and the king already on h7. Because rook c8 will be a problem if you start trying to attack white's king. That queen on d4 looks golden.
Yeah, it's dominating.
Rook d8 feels like
keeping
the only
you
option.
honest. No queen b3 and 19 seconds for Fabi.
He does not want to play that there. That's what I was talking about. But this move is hypercritical.
Wait a minute.
Gets a double question mark
Rook
by the
takes
computer.
d6. How do we answer rook takes d6? Just give me. Does he want to play queen e1 check?
This endgame
that
starting
looks
to
terrible.
look tricky.
Tricky or lost?
So we can either
maybe
snap up either pawn. We can take the e pawn or the h pawn. We're going to go for the d pawn. The e1 check does come through.
Taken on g5, and now we can get a queen and pawn ending. Okay, the queen and rook, I thought maybe I could hold. But the queen and pawn, I'd be very scared. And now the queen drops back, attacking the pawn on g5. And
so again, rook d5, you still can't take this pawn. We've always got that rook d8 cheapo.
But we got the queen b5, queen b7 check kind of things that maybe pin your rook maybe.
What? Rook d5?
Yeah, queen b7.
f3?
Well, I'm just saying, you're going to
Okay.
have to start creating a little air in your position, maybe queen c7 in response.
A little
already air, right? I got you. Now Magnus has to start finding accurate moves and look
Rook
at him
d5. Yeah,
play
yeah.
a really good move
You
there.
still can't take the pawn because I've got this rook d8 check and queen h8 ideas. So don't touch the pawn. And 19 seconds, Fabi's a pawn down. King h7, just trying to, I don't know. This is a very, very difficult position for Fabi.
Queen b7 on the board.
F3 or king g1 he's played. He just got, I hate being in pins. We all do. I was reaching for the f pawn. Magnus said, no, let's keep the pawn on the second rank.
Queen c7, and
D5.
Magnus looks over to say, am I getting checked too much? I don't think I am, so let me just do that and
Back up to
chill.
G2.
And suddenly he's in domination mode, and Fabi looking uncertain
B5
where
pawn.
to put that.
Okay, b6, queen takes b6. But rook to d7, just chasing the queen away.
Oh, that queen looks vulnerable, and I'm amazed by how the queen on d4 has not moved. It just sat there and said, I lord over the board. You can flail all you want to, but this queen has been controlling the entire game.
Best actress, no question about it. She's
Magnus
winning.
always finds a way to get his queen to the
And
center of
Rook
the board in a late game.
Beautiful, but
situation.
Magnus too, by the way, he's dropping down on the clock. I mean, this isn't a cakewalk for him. Rook to d7.
But now his
Good
queen
move.
could inch forward to d5.
Very, very nice.
And that creates
would,
a new issue because
Hello.
secondary threat plus the advance of the b pawn, and Fabi's trying to bail with a queen trade.
I'm afraid this is a losing ending. Queen takes, but if I were in Magnus, Magnus
take it.
says, I think that this is a winning rook and pawn endgame as well. He's taken it, and I think he's going to play f4, and he's just going to march his king right up the board.
Amazing. He lost control.
What technique.
He lost control for a little bit, but then he just took back over.
For but a moment. For but a moment, he lost control. And it was when Fabi took that stab back into the game, but it wasn't enough. Brought him to equal for a short period of time.
E5, I think he'll rue that moment, will Fabi. I'm looking at king d4. You're just making a beeline towards that c pawn. So
The b pawn.
the pawn,
Beeline to the b pawn.
Thank you. There you go. A beeline to the b pawn, and
It's over.
By the way, pause to mention the other game was a draw. We thought Gukesh was pushing in that one.
Which has effectively knocked those two players out.
We talked about
competition.
it.
They needed to win games.
Draws do not help those two competitors.
Fabi desperate for a draw here, but this is all Magnus.
B6. With this move, Magnus is preparing rook c7 check, driving the king back. Do we have rook check and rook g7? I think that's the simplest. B7 is probably a winning king and pawn endgame.
Oh, he
as
could
well.
even, right, the
Yeah.
king and pawn ending will be disastrous.
There it is.
There it is. B7.
One away from queening.
So what do we mean king and pawn endgame? Rook b1, rook b5, trade rooks, king to c7, king to c5, and Magnus will go after the g6 pawn. Now he gets to save, and that's the game. Wow. Well done, Magnus. Day one was world champion Gukesh. Day two was U.S. champion.